welcome to the Unknown Webcast. This is just a bit of a trigger warning for those who believe words are more injurious than sticks and stones. I really am so conservative, I can't turn left even when I'm driving.
No, you can't.
In addition to giving trigger warnings to our viewers, Ron Hensel and I both drink coffee for your protection. This week, Caleb Blair, Rob Blair, and Carl Teichrib join us to discuss human weeds, purge, protect, or perfect. My name is Don Vino. I'm president of Midwest Christian Outreach Inc. in Wonder Lake, Illinois, which produces the Unknown Webcast. Our senior researcher is Ron Hensel, who will introduce the sponsors of today's webcast. And here is Ronnie Baby.
Greetings from sunny Florida, where the palm tree came out, saw its shadow, and now we have 12 more months of summer. Our sponsor for this edition of the Unknown Webcast is Assimilation Ministries, where implanted in the body is not just a slogan. Assimilation Ministries. Our regular legal disclaimer: our guests on today's webcast insert names here. That would be Rob, Carl, and Caleb. Have no connection whatsoever to any of the satirical content of the Unknown Webcast here is referred to as the webcast, although we probably will not mention it again. This satirical content includes any and all commercials, end credits, puns, smart remarks, or anything else that might fall under the definition of satire. In the meantime, Midwest Christian Outreach Inc. bears no liability for or responsibility for anyone's opinions regarding this satirical content. Notice, the opinions expressed on this webcast are ours and should be yours too. If you enjoy it or if it really annoys you and you want to inflict it upon somebody else. To ensure your continued access, please go to midwestoutreach.org, click the yellow donate button, and contribute as you feel led. And as you do, never fear. This webcast is Y2K compliant. And don't forget to subscribe to us on your favorite video channels. And now, our special guests, Rob, Carl, and Caleb. Think about their names. This is the most sincere form of applause you will get this entire hour. So, I'll let Don turn this off because if I do,
because you're capable.
Yes, I don't have the capacity.
So, you got your PowerPoint.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is it okay? I thought I did. Okay.
Yep. No, we were echoing terribly.
Oh, you heard the echoes. I don't hear them. You guys hear them.
No, that's what I mentioned. You don't hear them. We hear them on our end when we're speaking, and your sound is on the PowerPoint. It's a really weird feature. I don't like it.
Let's try not to do that again. So,
boy, we said that together. How do you like that? We're like twins.
We're twins. It's like I'm looking into a mirror.
Oh yeah. Twin brothers of. Oh yeah, never mind. So we're talking today about human weeds, which is an interesting sort of a concept. We have written on this in the past because, too many people are, what's the word I want to use? Illiterate on history.
Mm-hmm.
And they are unaware of where things came from, why things came to be the way they are, why maybe we treat one another different ways. So we look back and we go, well, wait a minute. Did anyone even know there were human zoos in the early part of the 20th century? There's a few of us. Most people have no idea. And they were made up of particular African tribe. So that the white Europeans could look and ogle at the lowest of the evolutionary scale in real life in a zoo.
Yep.
Kind of weird stuff.
Yeah.
So, and in a moment or two, we're going to do just we're going to show your trailer on the video. I think is an important video that everyone needs to look at just to get if you know, get refreshed on history. If you don't, you need to learn. And you tried, I think, to do it in a balanced way, which is really important. You gave those who would disagree with us the opportunity to speak. So before we do that, how is it that you all are connected to the video to begin with?
Well, I was the executive producer and the father of two sons who really had a heart for doing media, and basically just wanted to encourage them to go further than I have. I've been educated with both a bachelor's and master's degree in film and video, and somehow they caught the bug and now are doing it better than I am. So I guess I succeeded. And so My sons came to me, said they wanted to do a video project as a big piece. And we decided documentary was the best way to make sure your actors knew how to act because they're just being themselves. And then we had good contact with our brother Carl Teichrib at the church that he had been going to when he was down here in the lower 50 and or 48, I guess, lower 48 for you.
Yeah.
49, it would be lower 49 for our brother in Canada. And so Carl had a lot of great contacts to help us kind of fill out some of the cast, especially on the other side. He knew a lot of people who would be able to give their best argument for the different things that were on the other side of where we were coming from, a different worldview perspective. So that was my involvement of just encouraging my son, Caleb, and my other son, Joshua, who helped out on crewing, but Caleb did most of the directing and all of the directing and editing, and Carl was our interviewer for the different segments.
Okay, and whose brainchild was this?
That would be Caleb's and our families and a couple other families. We talked about several different ideas. One other idea that was in the top running ended up getting done by someone else. Agenda by Curtis Bowers was kind of the same idea, and so we said, well, he already took care of that for us, so we'll go ahead and do this other subject of eugenics. The whole idea of trying to control who gets to live and who doesn't. And so the title itself was really kind of where we started from, with Margaret Singer's quote about certain people who are human weeds to society. And then from there, we just started to fill out the rest of the script.
Yeah. All right, so Caleb, what got you interested in this topic?
Well, in terms of the topic, I would say, we sat down with a couple of families and just determined we wanted to do a documentary, what would be an interesting documentary to do. And throughout, I don't remember how many, it was probably a couple dozen that we all started voting on. And this was not one that I was particularly interested in, but most of the people that were in that whole conversation voted on this one. And so it's the one that we went with. And then as I started to just do my preliminary research is when I really started to get interested in it and seeing the potential of it. And even like you said at the beginning, not being a lot of people not knowing their history, I was surprised. As much as I had studied and learned history, being homeschooled, and that was one of my favorite subjects, I was amazed in the process of this documentary and interviewing people and doing some fact-finding how much history I didn't know as it pertained to this topic that we then brought out in this documentary. So it quickly became a really exciting topic for us to pursue. Really thankful for Carl and bringing his expertise, not only in knowing who to interview, but because he's been spending decades in studying this topic and many others. He knew the vocabulary, he knew the questions to ask, he knew the background of a lot of the people that we interviewed to know specifically what to try to pull out of them and what questions to ask to get them talking about the subjects within the film. So without his expertise, it would have been a very different content, just a lot more general. He was able to get to some nitty-gritty specifics from our experts. So really grateful for that.
Yeah, no, Carl's really good. We have a comment here that we'll look at right away. We don't have to necessarily agree on politics or religion to acknowledge the value of fellow human beings, which means it is possible to be on friendly terms on separate sides of the coin. Technically, that's true, but less so these days.
Well, yeah, and what does it mean to even be? What is the value of a human being, and what is it grounded in?
Right, and who assesses that?
And that's really part of what this documentary kind of exposes, is recognizes there's at least two big worldviews that both value life and value Earth and humanity, but because they have different starting points, they lead to very different endpoints. And so that definition of value will then impact how you treat certain people. It is value across the board intrinsic to being a human being, or is there a specific quality of life for humans and for the planet that determines value, and therefore we should kind of get our hands in on humanity and determining who lives and who doesn't, so that certain people have that value of life. And so, yeah, it was something I really appreciated doing this project. Is I walked away starting this project, I assumed that and kind of believed that everyone that was on the other side of this issue hated humanity, were neo-Nazis, people that would just be very aggressive with me. And after sitting down and talking with them and spending time with them, I recognized I still very much disagree with you, but I can see that you genuinely want what you believe is best for people, and you're someone that I could be a friend with. I could have a hamburger if you would eat a hamburger in your backyard. You know, I could
or I could make you a salad.
Or I can make you a salad. And that we don't have to hate people and just be so have such animosity to someone that has a different perspective. We can actually be very friendly and yet still strongly disagree with a particular belief and the implications of that belief. That doesn't mean that you as a human being are now my enemy and I have to treat you as such.
Maybe the most I was going to say, maybe the most shocking part of the video is when people didn't know the meaning of the word eugenics.
Yep.
It's as though the original series of Star Trek never happened, you know, with the eugenic wars, Khan, Noonien, Singh, and I mean, and then you wouldn't have had the Wrath of Khan if it wasn't for that.
Exactly. These people have not been educated properly.
It's like, did that just completely not appear on their radar screens? How could you not know? So, of course, they had to probably alter the Star Trek timeline because the eugenics wars were supposed to happen in the 1990s. And I actually remember the 1990s, and there were no eugenics wars. I don't know if Caleb remembers them, but I do. So,
I vaguely remember the 90s.
Yeah, okay. So, but, you know, that was, you know, what the only part of the eugenics, you know, scene or whatever, you know, bag, whatever we said back in the 70s, you know, in 60s, the only part of it I remembered was Hitler. You know, it wasn't until much later in my life that I learned that, wow, it was like a Yankee, it was like an American idea in many ways. I don't know if they really established who started it. I think they concluded they came to the conclusions at roughly the same time on both sides of the ocean. But
well, right, and it kind of emanates from the same source, which is social Darwinism. So, but we'll have to come back to that because I want to get Carl into the picture here and say, Carl, well, you and I have an affinity for the same kinds of things already.
Cowboy hats and leather jackets?
Well, no,
cowboy jackets.
We go to
Suede.
odd places to talk with odd people. You know, we
Oh,
like
that-
the Parliament
that
of World
is-
Religions. We love to
That
go to
does make you unique. Yes.
It does, yeah. You hardly find any Christian. In fact, you tell
see,
them
you
this
can-
is.
You
I'm
can do it
going
with a
to
straight
I'm going to
face.
Paganacon this week to hang out with like 1,100 witches and pagans. And they go, aren't you afraid? Why would you do that?
Well, to you, it's not like you could do it with a straight face. That's the thing. You're gonna have to, like, you know, rein me in when we're there.
Yeah. So, Carl, they touched on how it is that you got involved in a project. You were just friends with them, and you had connections. How does all of that come about, right?
Well, I was just along for the ride, and it was a fantastic ride, by the way. We had a lot of fun together. You know, that's one of the things that I really appreciated about this little group, our little troop, when we hopped in the bus or in the van and just sort of road tripping it, going from city to city, state to state, having conversations with people, whether they were on the street, because we did do a number of street interviews. We did street interviews in Central Park, New York City. We did street interviews at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., and downtown Cincinnati. And you know, along the way, just had some fantastic conversations with people. So I was really blessed. I know the family and know, I think, all the families that were involved. And I think one of the things that is remarkable about the story is the background, the backdrop. And that is a group of young people. Young people, like Caleb, I think you were, what, 18? Josh was 16,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
yeah, and so you've got a group of homeschoolers, young homeschoolers, who are going, let's vote on a documentary production, let's make this thing happen. And then they went out and did it, and did a remarkable job. Really pulled together a lot of very important moving pieces, had some incredible dialogues and conversations with people from both sides of the debate, and did so in a very professional manner. We went together as a team to the Global Futures 2045 Congress, which happened in 2013, and it was the largest gathering of transhumanists that year. And it was a monumental event within the realm of the transhumanist movement. And we're having conversations there. We're sitting down with some of the luminaries, and they're willing to sit behind, across the camera from us and engage in conversations. My job was very simple. My job was, as has already been alluded to sit down and to make the guest feel at ease, because we want that person to feel at ease. I have a knowledge of the language, a knowledge of their worldview, and then be able to have a conversation that allows their ideas to flow without trying to force things out. Just allow it to happen naturally. And it was a relaxed setting, and it was a lot of fun.
Looked good. The final product was really good. So,
Well, something that you all haven't touched on is the importance of being able to dialogue with somebody with whom you disagree. And there was a time, I look back in the 1960s, for example, which were kind of raucous, but conservatives and liberals, although they disagreed, they didn't disagree on the worldview, essentially. They had the same worldview. They saw the same problems, but they had radically different solutions to the problems. And so they could argue, they could, carry on, whatever, and then they could go out to dinner. Today, it's a much more difficult society because we don't even see the same problems. And it's much easier than to demean and discount another human being as not as human as you are.
we're not sure we're even in the same dimension with these people sometimes,
That's exactly right. And so,
when
even though
a man is a woman, it's like you have to rewrite all the old songs,
Well, here's another old song. Are you a boy or are you a girl? You look like a you may be a boy, but you look like a girl. Hey, you look. Oh no, wrong song.
But to your point, to the point of being able to dialogue, to have those conversations, one of the things that strikes home, and it was true for all of us on the team, was the humanness that we were dealing with. I remember when we left John Glad's apartment. And he begged us to stay. He begged us. He was like, I have ice cream. Stay. And it was just an expression of his human personal loneliness as he was living alone, and as his connections with people were obviously had grown distant already. And for me, that was a remarkable illustration, a hard illustration. I walked out of this place with a lump in my throat, because I'm like, the guy is yearning for human interaction, as he just sat down with us and described why we need to engage in eugenics and why we take this almost an anti-human approach, but he didn't see it that way, of course. And then that very human element of literally him begging us to stay and trying to keep us there with with ice cream. Please stay.
I don't think I could have resisted that. But you guys are made of sturdier material than I am.
But it was just that. It was a graphic illustration, a graphic example of the importance of recognizing the value in being human, and the beauty of that.
Which guest was this on the video?
John Glad.
John Black?
Glad.
Glad. Glad. Yeah, Glad. Yeah, John Glad. Yeah.
So
And then in terms of the otherness, I remember being in Jeremy Rifkin's office, which was phenomenal. I mean, the guy who just had taken a phone call from some department or some government guru from France, his secretary walked in and said, France is on the line, because Jeremy Rifkin is I mean, he is,
the whole
he
country
gives
wants to talk to him.
That's
well,
right.
yeah, he does he gives advice to the European Union. He gives advice to heads of state.
So
And so
now we
we're
know
in
what's
his,
going wrong. What is
right, we're in his office, and the secretary walks in and says, France is on the line, and he just says, yeah, I'll call back later. And we're like all looking at each other going, like, what is this? And then Jeremy goes off towards the end. I'm not, can't remember the exact part of the interview, but he goes off on cows and how we got too many cows and we have to get rid of cows. And I think bring down cows to like 400 million cattle worldwide if we're going to save the planet from methane overproduction and catastrophic global climate change. And so we packed the bags, and I remember as we got in the van, I can't remember if it was Josh or Caleb or whoever it was. We're like, where do you want to go for lunch? Like, where are we going to go for a
Beef
bite?
O'Brady's.
Yep, 5 guys. So off we went, and all had burgers and cheered Jeremy Rifkin with our
Well,
burgers.
you're helping get rid of the cows. I
That's
mean,
right.
You're
That's
doing,
right.
You're doing
So
your part. You're
we
doing
toasted
your
our
part.
burgers to him
Yeah.
in honor of the
You're-
time he gave us.
He should have sent you a thank you after that.
That's right.
All right, now we're gonna take just a short little, almost 2-minute video break here, to give people kind of the flavor of what is going on in the film.
But the big problem, though, is that what we have now is we have this vibrant ecology, this wonderful planet, and we are the invasive species from hell.
We are destroying the ecosystem. We really are weeds in this sense.
I think the word eugenics raises a lot of strong emotions, but basically it's about wanting to have the best possible life for one's children.
Well, eugenics is fundamentally Darwinism applied to people.
Basically, we are trying to create this spirit on our planet which will allow everybody to become perfect.
Taking control of our own evolution. It's really about turning over the choices to us.
That if we are indeed steering our future, then we need to be responsible for it.
It's easy to say that someone else should be cultivated, someone else should be exterminated, when in fact it very well could be them too.
People don't think about that. By the time you think about it, it's too late. People need to decide, what do I believe about human life, and where does that thinking lead? Where has it led historically?
We don't need to stifle one side of the conversation in the hopes that it allows the other side of the conversation to thrive. What we do need to do is have the conversation. And by having it, I truly believe that that is going to make a big difference.
If you've never changed your mind about something, pinch yourself. You may be dead.
That was quick. That was faster than I remembered.
Well, it's a sign of a good trailer, or it doesn't feel as long as it actually is.
Yeah, no.
I like the last line there from Richard Cizik, pinch yourself.
Yep.
We were all, when we did that interview with Richard, we were pinching ourselves because he had been given access to George Soros's Open Society Foundation building, kitty corner across, I believe, from the White House. And we sat up in there, we're like, can you believe it? We're like in ground zero. And was that a Saturday? Because I think they had to give us special access to get into it. Yeah. And there we were, like pinching ourselves.
Right. Well, it's interesting. Now, I would suggest, and y'all can tell me that I'm wrong, and I'll still think that you are. No, never mind. Troublemakers. Now, this really surfaced in our culture and then in Germany in the 1930s, but it started before that.
Absolutely.
With Darwinian evolution. because you had this idea that you have humans existing at various stages of
Development.
evolutionary perfection, let's say.
Yeah.
Right? White Europeans being on the top of the rung, black Africans being on the bottom of the rung, and in fact, they are closer to apes than they are to white Europeans in the evolutionary world, which kind of helped the whole idea of slavery at the time, and also discrimination against blacks. So it was science, so-called, at kind of the base of that, not really biblical understandings.
If evolution had been first proposed by an Islamic scholar at the height of the Ottoman Empire, let's say, and had been allowed to run its course, we might have a totally different concept. I mean, they were already breeding animals, for different outcomes, and breeding, cross-pollinating plants and things like this. I don't know exactly what point that started, but I know I think it was going on for hundreds of years. So they had some glimmer of a concept that you could improve a species, or you could bring out certain characteristics,
right?
Like in dogs and things like that. And, but if it had run its course in a different setting, I wonder what the outcome would have been. I think it would have been probably very similar, because human pride is still there. And
and
you
that's what
mentioned
we kind of show in the film, is that the same underlying worldview and beliefs just have produced different kinds of initiatives throughout history. So eugenics wasn't just Nazism and it sprouted up with Hitler and died with Hitler. These ideas were way before then, and they are very much alive and well now. And like you said, it's still the human heart that is operating and taking these ideas and putting them into various actions.
Yeah, you mentioned the word pride, Ron. That's something that every human being struggles with. But the thing that we found common amongst all three stages of eugenics, past being the purging of those who were deemed unfit, the present being protecting the closed ecosystem. We only have so many resources to, as far as the claim that this is a closed ecosystem. So we have to protect our limited resources. And in the future, eugenics is the perfecting of humanity. We have to kind of jumpstart evolution, because we haven't seen any good results in the last couple thousand years. So how can we use technology to help us perfect our genetic outcome? And what all of those have in common is power. Who determines who is fit to live, or adds value to life, or what is a better life, which is where the word eugenics comes from. And it all originated, if you take it back, the term was originated by, I believe, Francis Galton, who was the cousin or second cousin to none other than Charles Darwin. And so it finds its root in the whole evolutionary process.
Yeah. You don't want to sit around and wait for a couple of million years for the next beneficial mutation to come along.
Exactly.
And yet the lesson in Jurassic Park is life will find a way. So it's so it's like which the bigger message for me was, don't mess with things the way they are. But
yeah, we have no idea what we're messing with.
We don't listen.
Well, one of my favorite evolutionists is the late Stephen Jay Gould. I found him fascinating, humorous, and honest enough to say, look, we have no fossil records to prove anything that we are saying. And so he opted for the hopeful monster theory, that everything went along pretty much as was. It was like a stair step for a long period of time, and then he took a jump. So
punctuated equilibrium.
Yeah, punctuated equilibrium. So that's why you don't have the fossil records, because it's almost like, not quite, but almost like a reptile laid an egg and out hatched a bird. It's not quite that fast, but it's kind of along those lines.
And then you have, aliens from other planets actually seeded our oceans. That might,
Right.
but
Nelson
that gets it
Crick's idea, right?
started, but that doesn't explain all the steps, does it?
No, it
Yeah.
sure doesn't. So, but you have to believe. In order to believe, you have to be forced into the cult, and we have a sponsor that believes in that heavily.
Very much so. The questions are churches getting a little too individualistic for your tastes? Do you often wish that it wasn't so hard to fit in with the new Christians you meet? Would you rather be part of a collective than a uniquely gifted member of a fellowship? Well, now you can find freedom from the hassles of having your own personal identity with Assimilation Ministries. Their pastoral staff is ready to relieve you of the burden of being yourself. No need to choose a new identity, they choose it for you. All their assimilations come with their trans lifetime guarantee. Satisfaction is irrelevant. Assimilation Ministries, where implanted in the body is not just a slogan. There you go. So,
There you go.
I need to be relieved of my sense of individuality from time to time.
Yeah.
Blend in with the universe or the collective. So.
Right. So the title "Human Weeds," as you pointed out, comes from things that Margaret Singer has said, as we need to cultivate the human garden and remove the human weeds. What was her proposed solution to or process to do that?
Well, what's interesting about eugenics and something I learned in the process of making this film about eugenics is eugenics isn't just exterminating people. There's a positive and a negative side of eugenics. And so Sanger herself, I would say, focused a little bit more on the negative side of eugenics. She was a big proponent of sterilization laws for those who she deemed as unfit, whether that be feeble-minded idiots, imbeciles, a whole moron scales back in the early 1900s. A lot of the terms that we use today, moron, idiot, imbecile, they actually come from American eugenics and how there would be eugenic competitions in the US. You had the IQ challenge or IQ tests that came out of this. You had measuring and kind of mapping people's skulls and brains to see how intelligent they were. Health came into it, economics, so the standard of living that you had in society. And so she was about really eliminating people that didn't measure up to what she thought was a fit, healthy, affluent kind of human being. But there was also positive eugenics, which is promoting the well-born, the healthy, the educated, to have them breed. You actually saw this in Nazi Germany, where they had a lot of the Gestapo. There were houses where they could have sex with the best of the German women and try to just breed as many what they thought would end up being good, healthy, intelligent human beings. They were trying to jumpstart human evolution, if you will, just very naturally before we were getting into transhumanism and using technology to do it, just using natural breeding. So they were positive eugenics is really like promoting and safeguarding the quote well-born, the healthy, the intelligent. And so you had a lot of that was the focus, I would say, in the U.S. The Nazis really, of course, popularized and took the negative eugenics to its full extent and kind of gave the term eugenics a really bad name. And so that kind of fell out of style, though the ideas were very much alive and well. So obviously, Margaret Singer came during and after the Nazis and was promoting this in the U.S. With her founding of Planned Parenthood. You can see the philosophy that she had being very much at the roots of Planned Parenthood, where you're going to find clinics in inner cities really targeting poor African American communities. We interviewed a gentleman who's in charge of a complex in Indiana that was really a house for the quote unquote feeble-minded. and that they had, I believe it was over 100 forced sterilizations. They had, I think, 8,000 patients while the facility was up and running, and over 100 of them they forcibly sterilized. Basically gave them the option of, you can live in this community cut off from the rest of your friends and family for the rest of your life, or you can be sterilized and we'll let you go back to your family because you won't be a menace to society and spreading your genes to the next generation of humanity. So Margaret Singer was just a small part of eugenics here in the United States and in the global story of eugenics. But that's kind of a little bit of how she fit into the puzzle.
Is there any sort of, among those who are in favor of eugenics, some sort of agreed on description of the perfect human that they're striving to bring everyone to become? Or is it just vague?
I never thought he would look like Hitler. I'll tell you that. I mean, here's the guy who's out promoting it, and he looks like a really, I don't know, frumpy version of Charlie Chaplin.
Mixed with, the Mo from the Three Stooges.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, I would lean on
Hitler.
I would lean on Carl for answering this one. To my knowledge, I would say it's more vague consensus. I don't know that there's a codified definition of the ultimate human being. I think they would even say we're kind of in the quest of that with transhumanism and figuring out what is humanity's potential if we fuse robotics and AI and nanomedicine, nanotechnology with human DNA. What could it be? But I don't know, Carl. Do you have any insight on what you would say people on that side of the discussion have any kind of consensus regarding the ultimate human?
I think what you would see was a type of consensual movement. It wasn't, a consensus-based movement. It wasn't, here's the manual for us to follow. It was more like, here's the manual that we are now developing, and we're going to be progressing as we explore different scientific, genetic, even cultural elements of what eugenics looks like. Because we have to remember, especially in the beginning phases of eugenics, it's a movement that has an ideal. It's really about an ideal. And then how do you fashion that ideal? And so all of a sudden, here's the consensus of sorts, but it's not a codified consensus. It's more of a cultural consensus with the elite circles. The very first place where you see this landing in terms of policy, at least from what I understand, is the state of Indiana, which is the first place to put in code, put in law, eugenics, the eugenics movement. And there was this, it's kind of anytime you're dealing with an ideal, you've got many steps towards that ideal, but it doesn't mean that you're going to land on the end product. There's going to be a lot of changes, and you're going to see lots of things shifting along the way. And indeed, that's exactly what we're seeing with the eugenics movement. From that time period to now, remarkably different, though the goal still remains, how do we now build the perfect human being? How do we now build the right person, the right human?
The right $6 million man, right?
Right, yeah, exactly. And so if it did look like anything, it would look like the social elites of that time period, what they were expecting, what they hoped to emulate through eugenics to build more of themselves.
So is it the case that they are basically saying we need to improve humans, mankind? We're not really sure what that looks like, but we know what it will be when we get there.
And we know best.
And we know best because
that's very important.
Even though the idea keeps morphing, because, if you're going to have transhumanism, technology keeps changing.
Right.
So, yeah.
It kind of sounds to me, Carl and I have talked kind of about this a lot, that we're looking at the Tower of Babel 2.0. God wanted them to scatter and multiply, and they go, yeah, we don't really like that idea. We want to try something different. We're going to build a tower and a monument to ourselves.
Right.
And they did. And then God showed up after they were done. He goes, yeah, I don't think you're going to do this really. It's already
ultimately
built.
to try to become God themselves. And they were wanting to replace God and say, we don't need you. We are going to be God. And that's kind of the same thing here is we don't need God. Let's create the ultimate humanity.
We can do
God.
a more satisfactory job for ourselves to be God.
Yeah. Which goes to Ron's point earlier about pride and again, control, power. Who gets to determine that?
Yeah. I mean, right now we can't even decide what a good beauty contest pageant woman looks like. In eugenics, when eugenics was born, it was the age. I won't call it the age of racism, but racism was maybe at its apex. I don't know. It was pretty close. If it wasn't during slavery, it was sometime after. What is eugenics and transhumanism and all that look like in what I'll call the age of anti-racism? I mean, it's kind of like you don't want to put a blonde Nordic buff picture up there and say this is going to be the perfect man. I mean, that could get you canceled,
Yeah. So, I think it looks like what was said earlier, one intelligent. So the academia gets to decide that it looks like no disease, no illness. So it's not so much that they know exactly what it will be, but they know what it's not. And so get rid of any kind of defectiveness, deficiencies. Those who are unable to add value to culture and society are becoming useless eaters, is a term that will be used in the fact that they're just using up resources, which again goes back to where Carl showed in some of the interviews, and you'll see this in the documentary. He shows a poster of what the value was of somebody who was mentally, physically handicapped and unable to take care of themselves, what it would cost the state to take care of them, and putting a dollar sign value on that person. And we asked people today what they thought about it, and people were shocked that happens, but it happens when you start changing it from a dollar sign to a carbon footprint, or you change it to something else that starts to determine, is this person adding to society or are they a drain on society? So that's where in the age of anti-racism, we can't just put up an Aryan photo of someone who's Nordic looking, but we basically put up a healthy, intelligent person, probably a woman, because again, that's part of the positive eugenics that Caleb mentioned earlier. One of the first interviews we did was with a college professor, and in this even comes out with the gentleman who was the contributor to Oxford University.
Dr. James Martin.
Yeah, James Martin talks about one of the positive eugenic strategies is to educate women. Why? Because then they're in school for at least 4 years, get them into higher education, 6 to 8 years, get them into a job where they have to pay off all of that education. So they're not going to have a family. And we already see this working when you have birth rates dropping like crazy and having an upside down pyramid when it comes to a population of a culture. Now, does that mean we're against women being educated? Absolutely not, but for a very different reason. And that's the whole thing, that their objective is not because they want smarter women. Their objective is that they want fewer babies.
Yeah.
Right.
Which, that's weird.
Well, and on a tangentially, on a not completely related subject, but they have similarities, is the climate change. Michael Moore, who's a fascinating character, was the executive producer for a film a few years back called The Planet of the Humans. And he is invested in the climate change story. And so they went in search of how well are we doing in all of the products, the ways we're trying to stop or limit climate change so we can save the planet. And at each turn of the documentary, they discover that what you're doing is not only not fixing the climate change problem, but it's creating additional climate change problems because they can't dispose of all of the stuff that they've made that no longer like just disintegrates into the ground. And so his solution is not to try to stop climate change because he realizes you can't, but to eliminate the human population.
Mm-hmm.
That's where this kind of fits in. We have to now decide which humans are going to be the best suited to continue the human race and kind of get rid of the rest of them.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all going to live in Texas. That's what Al Gore said. You could fit all like 7 billion people he was writing about at the time into Texas with the right architecture, you know. But so you, well, okay. Just, yeah.
So how does transhumanism then really, as I'm getting into this, I want to kind of point out that there are some benefits to some of the work that they are coming up with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like nanotechnology, for example. Is nanotechnology useful in helping with medical treatments?
Yeah, I think the real quick answer is if it helps us get back to what God created human beings to be, by getting rid of any kind of ailment or something that is a result of the fall, then that is a helpful thing. We're in favor of people being healthy if it is possible. When it crosses the line is when it tries to bring man to a level that is beyond a superman, if that sounds familiar. There's a reason why a superhuman level, then that crosses the line. That goes back to what was said about the Tower of Babel, that man gets to decide what he should have been created as.
Right. Right.
Yeah. It's not that we're against technology. That's not the point. In fact, we're very thankful for technology. Technology is one of those endeavors that demonstrates that God has given us a creative capacity that is very unique to the human experience. Beavers always build the same dam, birds build the same nest, but there's this drive that we have as humans to continually create, to innovate, to build. It's a good thing. God's designed us that way. And the crossover, and Rob has pointed that out, and I believe that that's really, really what separates the Christian worldview from what we're looking at in terms of the typical transhumanist worldview, which is, well, we recognize that there are limits to what we can do. There are limits to who we are. We are designed. It's not accidental. We are designed as humans. And that is where the line is. When we cross that line and try to become something more, it harkens back then to the Genesis 3 problem, which is Adam and Eve essentially agreeing with they can be more. Mm-hmm. Transgress God's law, eat of the fruit. By breaking God's law, you demonstrate that you are as God. You have now overcome, or you have surpassed your limitations. You are now more than human.
You know what I'm surprised? I just thought of this. Maybe it's a slight, I don't know how on topic it is, but we haven't heard much about human cloning lately.
No.
There was a brief kerfluffle about it when they were talking about actually passing a law against it in the 90s, I think, and Clinton was on board with that, you know, let's outlaw human cloning. I don't think anything came of it. It's like, well, is there a mad rush that I'm not aware of to clone yourself? Or
no. And Ron, yeah, that's a really important point. I mean, we have these spurts where all of a sudden the technology demonstrates that we can follow this path and achieve our ideological goals. Cloning, wow, this is the pathway towards a new transhumanist future. Then virtual reality. Look, we could all upload ourselves into the cloud, become avatars, upload our consciousness. We don't know what consciousness is. But
what a way to live! What a way to live, you know.
Right. But every step along the way, AI is now the talking point. Yeah. Every step along the way, technologically, gives us a from the transhumanist point of view, a hope.
It gives us a sense that we're in control.
Yeah. Right. But all technology has a utilitarian limitation. And all of a sudden you run into that, utilitarian limitation, And while it still has relevance in the conversation, it no longer becomes the driver of the conversation.
And unintended consequences, which, yeah.
I also wonder if the reason why cloning kind of became, non-vogue was because you're making more of the same and not less, not fewer. So it's not solving the what some would view as the problem being too many people.
And you're not adding to genetic variety within the species, which is not considered a good thing over time. So,
I want to bring up a slightly different kind of question, as we're talking about who decides who should live and who should not, or be more perfected or not perfected. I kind of like Scott Klusendorf's sled for talking about pro-life ideas, for example. And I think that kind of fits into this whole question.
Absolutely.
As well. Size. How big determines whether you are a person or not? Is it a matter of size? Is this someone who's short of stature less of a human than someone who's tall of stature? For example, my granddaughter was born with pituitary dwarfism. Fortunately, they had ways to kind of resolve some of that, but she's on the shorter side of the average for women. So is she less of a human than my wife? No, of course not, because size doesn't matter. Or level of development. A 20-year-old is more developed, obviously, than a 10-year-old. Does that make them more human, more valuable as a person? I would say no. That has nothing to do with the question. Or environment, where you live. I find that one fascinating because that really is the big one for the pro-choice crowd, is because they live in the womb rather than outside the womb, that makes them not a person. And I wrote, I wrote to the Clinton campaign to pose this question in another campaign. At what point does a human become a person relative to in the womb versus outside the womb? And they didn't seem to know how to respond to that.
Yeah.
So environment, and if that's the measure, then what if we just said everyone who lives, I don't know, in Cape Coral, Florida, is now legally not a person? Can we do that? Yeah.
Peter Singer's definition of a person, I forget, but he's okay with infanticide.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. In fact, he argues that you should make the decision before they're 5 years old.
Why put it off? He defines person on the basis of their functional capacity, particularly the ability to experience consciousness, pain, and pleasure, things like that, which seems a pretty low bar, actually. But
it is. Yeah. So we're kind of back to the question: who gets to decide what constitutes being a human?
Well, this reminds me of the questions that Francis Schaeffer was asking toward the end of his life. If we put society in the hands of technocrats, who's watching them? Who is if they become the ultimate authority, then what values, what criteria are they going to use, and who decides what criteria? Well, they decide. So
right.
Yeah, and that's the bigger question, is like the question of who gets to decide. Even you have to step back one step and say, how do you determine who gets to decide? Right. And Darwinian evolution would say, well, the people that get to decide are the survival of the fittest, the ones that can basically bully and win out over the weaklings. They're the ones that gets to decide because of natural selection and survival of the fittest. Christians would say that God gets to decide because he is the author of life. He is the one that created us and sustains us. And so that decision is out of our control. No person has the right to decide that. So it's even a step backward of how do you even get to determine who gets to decide by what standard do we even make that assumption?
Right.
Right. And then being made in the image of God. That,
Yes.
for us as Christians, we're like, my goodness, the standard already has been put in. It's already been placed within the script. And that is that we are made in the image of God. Being made in the image of God does not mean that we carry some type of moral position or have some type of cognitive ability that is extra special. No, because if that's all it means, then within the womb, then that individual is not yet a person. It has to mean something intrinsically deeper, something intrinsically more important, something that has an eternal bearing. And so being made in the image of God is to be his reflection on earth. It is to represent his standard, his ideal, his goal. And now obviously we don't live that out because of the problem of sin, but that does not diminish what we are as being created in God's image.
And so that's why we say that every life has value. Every life is beautiful because it is created in the image of God. And in fact, the more that a life is vulnerable or smaller in the sense of unable to protect itself, means that we as humanity must come and protect it. And this is why the abortion issue is such a big part of this discussion. I'm glad you brought up Sled and Scott Klusendorf and the work he's done. And that is why probably by far, hands down, the most powerful part of the documentary is a section we call The Sound of Abortion. I would just encourage people to go to the link and watch the documentary, if for no other reason to experience that section of the documentary where you get to hear what abortion sounds like. I'm not talking about in a clinic, but just giving sense, the sense of sound to the numbers.
With BBs. Yeah, it was quite compelling. It was quite sobering to hear that.
Yeah.
And then to go from that to an interview of a quote unquote human weed who others attempted to exterminate and it did not work. She survived the extermination attempt and is alive. And so now to have a face and a voice behind the issues, it's one thing to be talking intellectually about these ideas. It's another when you're confronted with a real human being that life is on the line, and now what do you believe about this worldview? So to then
Melissa Oden.
Yep. And to bring it full circle, though again I would disagree with those on the other side of the aisle that say we need to manage population, or we need to eliminate those who try to limit my ability to be whoever or whatever I want to be. I would say because of the fact that even those who are transhumanists or even those who are pro-abortionists, because they are made imago Dei, in the image of God, I would defend their right to be alive. That's why we don't look at them as we need to get rid of these people. No, we need to help these people understand that their beliefs, their ideas have consequences.
You know, it's interesting to me. Of course, I'm involved with apologetics. I, like Carl and I, talk with all kinds of people in all sorts of circumstances, and some of these questions come up in the midst of discussion, and almost to a person, none of them seem to recognize or know, because they don't know much about history, that the values for life that we're talking about, even for them, emanate from a biblical perspective. And some of the best, this is so funny to me because this has been about 6 years in the making now. Some of the best defenses for the Christian faith are now coming from atheists who are arguing, like Tom Holland's book, Dominion, demonstrating that if it wasn't for Christianity, we wouldn't even have Western culture, and that the value of human life prior to the advent of Christianity was that human life wasn't valuable. You know, killing babies was not a big deal.
Whatever Western culture we would have would appear barbaric to many of the anti-Christian people today.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And so what gave human life value was the way Christians treated human life. They would go out and look for the babies that have been abandoned to allow them to die. They raise the level of females. All of those sorts of things are a result of Christianity. So as they're fighting against Christianity and wanting to have their own, I want to develop my own whatever, and get rid of Christianity. Well, what do you have left? You have just kill and be killed. That's it. That's all you got.
Don, to put it in perspective, a slight tangent, but you mentioned Michael Moore earlier. He made a documentary called Capitalism, A Love Affair. And praise God, he got to make that in a capitalistic culture environment. He wouldn't have been able to make that film.
Look at how bad we have it here. Look at how horrible this is. He couldn't even afford the equipment to make the movie if he was in many other cultures.
Right.
I mean, unless the government was sponsoring it.
And so there's the parallel, the equivalent of those who argue against the value of human life actually are standing in the soil of that they've been created in the image of God, that they even get to speak that out.
Right. So Human Weeds, it is an important documentary. You can watch it on YouTube. We have the link in the description. Go there and watch it. And do we have contact information for you guys? I think we do. In there. If not, they can contact me and I can put them in contact with you. So,
and even if you disagree with the documentary, please watch it. Leave comments. Let's have the discussion.
Let's have the discussion. I love it. Let's have
talk
the discussion.
about it.
That almost sounds like a Charlie Kirk-ism.
Can we talk?
Once the discussion stops, bad things happen.
Yeah.
Ron, would you walk us out of here, baby?
Yes, let's give credit to whom credit is due. Our resident cult leader profiler is Neil before me. Our wardrobe manager is See How It Fits You. Culinary services are provided by Chef Ham and Cheese. Our tinfoil hat provisioner is Just In Case. Jehovah's Witnesses coverage comes from Armageddon and D. Opposer. Our Mormon Archives manager is Polygamus. Our Liberal Denominations Bureau Chief is Lucy Goosey. Our transgender issues coverage comes from Ben Hur. Special correspondent for Pulse based on the Hindenburg disaster and flying turkeys, Ode to Humanity. Our fact-checking supervisor is Yolik Pulling. Our technical assistance comes through Murphy Research. Our legal advisors at the law firm of Dewey, Cheatham & Howe. Our grievance resolution director is Giovanna Pisami. Our director of privacy assurance is Wiretapping. And original idea sourcing comes from Drew A. Blank. The Unknown Webcast is a production of Midwest Christian Outreach Inc. in cooperation with Emergency Manicure Productions, both of whom are solely responsible for this content, although you will never be able to prove that in a court of law. We're still waiting.
Never happened.
Never.
All right. Thank you for joining us.